Crash-landing hearts. The transport ship Harmony's Edge shuddered violently as it broke through Silvara's atmosphere, its hull screaming against the thin air. Captain Zara Mitchell gripped the controls with white knuckles, her brown eyes reflecting the warning lights that bathed the cockpit in angry red. "Come on, baby. Just a little further," she whispered to her dying ship, coaxing every last bit of power from the failing engines. The diplomatic supplies in her cargo hold medical equipment, food synthesizers, and peace treaties would mean nothing if she couldn't land safely. The moon's silver surface rushed up to meet her, and Zara barely managed to level out before impact. The ship carved a brutal furrow through the crystalline sand dunes, metal shrieking against stone, until finally, mercifully, everything went silent. Blood trickled from a gash on her forehead as Zara fumbled with her restraints. The acrid smell of burning circuits filled her nostrils, as she knew she had minutes before the ship's core went critical. Stumbling through the tilted corridor, she managed to grab her emergency pack before the Harmony's Edge began its death throes. She had barely cleared the wreckage when the explosion lit up the night sky like a second sun, alone on an alien moon. Zara pressed her back against a boulder and tried to process her situation. Silvara was disputed territory, technically neutral ground, where humans and Nexari held tense negotiations. But those talks had been failing for months. She was stranded in the middle of a potential war zone with nothing but basic survival gear. The sound of approaching engines made her heart race. Through the settling dust, she saw the sleek lines of a Nexari patrol craft landing 50 meters away. Zara's hand moved instinctively to her sidearm, then stopped. Fighting would only confirm every prejudice the Nexari held about human aggression. The figure that emerged from the craft was tall and imposing, even by Nexari standards. His skin held the characteristic blue-gray tone of his species, marked with darker patterns that spoke of noble birth. Ceremonial armor covered his broad chest, and twin curved blades hung at his sides. But it was his eyes, deep violet and surprisingly gentle, that caught Zara's attention. Commander Keth Valorian had been patrolling the border when the explosion drew his attention. He expected to find smugglers or spies, not an injured human woman sitting alone in the wreckage of her dreams. Every protocol demanded he arrest her immediately and contact headquarters. Instead, he found himself walking slowly forward, hands visible and empty. "You are hurt," he said in accented but clear standard. His voice was deeper than Zara expected, with a musical quality that made her pulse quicken despite the danger. "I live," she replied, though the world swayed slightly. As she stood, "My ship malfunctioned during approach. I'm Captain Zara Mitchell, carrying diplomatic supplies under neutral passage rights." Keth studied her face, noting the pain she tried to hide and the determination in her brown eyes. In his culture, such stoic bravery was highly valued, regardless of species. "I am Commander Keth Valorian of the Silver Fleet. You should not be here alone." "Tell me something I don't know," Zara muttered, then immediately regretted the casual human response. But instead of taking offense, Keth's mouth curved in what might have been almost a smile. "The nearest human outpost is 3 days' journey through hostile territory," he said carefully. "Nexari Command would consider you a security risk." "And you? What do you consider me?" Keth looked at the burning wreckage, then back at the brave human woman who had survived an impossible landing. Every instinct told him to follow orders. But something deeper, something that had nothing to do with military duty, made him extend his hand. "I consider you someone who needs help," he said simply. Their fingers touched for the first time as he helped her to her feet, and both felt the spark of something that would change their worlds forever. Healing touch Dia. Elena Voss had always believed that healing transcended species, but she had never expected to test that theory on Silvara. The underground medical facility, hummed quietly around her as she reviewed the files of her most challenging patient prince. Thane Shadowmere, heir to one of the most powerful Nexari houses. The prince had been brought in 3 days ago, his body ravaged by plasma burns sustained, while defending a human refugee convoy from extremist attacks. Most Nexari physicians had declared his condition hopeless, but Elena saw possibilities where others saw only despair. She entered his private chamber carrying her medical kit, prepared for the usual hostility. What she found instead was a figure of tragic beauty, tall, even lying down, with the aristocratic bone structure of his lineage. His skin, normally a rich blue-gray, had taken on an ashen tone, and the intricate silver tattoos marking his royal status seemed to fade with his life. Force. You are the human healer, Thane said without opening his eyes. His voice was weak, but carried the cultured accent of Nexari nobility. Dr. Elena Voss, she replied, setting down her equipment. And you're my patient, which means species doesn't matter in here. Thane's violet eyes opened, studying her with curiosity rather than contempt. Elena was smaller than most humans he had encountered, with gentle features and auburn hair pulled back in a practical bun. Her hands moved with practiced efficiency as she prepared her instruments. My own people have given up on me, he said quietly. Why should a human care if I live or die? Elena met his gaze steadily. Because that's what healers do. We care. As she began her examination, Elena was struck by the extent of his injuries. The plasma burns had damaged not just skin and muscle, but the complex network of nerve clusters that gave Nexari their enhanced reflexes and strength. Traditional medicine would focus on preventing infection and managing pain until the inevitable end. But Elena had studied Nexari physiology extensively, fascinated by the elegant integration of their biological systems. She had theories unproven, radical theories about regenerative techniques that might work. This will hurt, she warned, beginning to clean the worst of the wounds. Thane tensed, expecting agony, but Elena's touch was impossibly gentle. Her hands seemed to know exactly how much pressure to apply, how to work around his pain rather than through it. In Nexari culture, medical treatment was efficient, but harsh healers were respected for their skill, not their bedside manner. Have kind hands, he murmured, then seemed surprised by his own words. Elena smiled, the first genuine warmth he had seen from anyone in days. My mentor always said that healing begins with compassion. The medicine just helps it along. Over the following hours, Elena worked with a dedication that amazed Thane. She used techniques he had never seen, combining traditional human medicine with her deep understanding of Nexari biology. When she applied a biogel that should have burned like fire, it instead brought cooling relief. How do you know so much about my people? He asked during a brief rest. I've made it my life's work to understand different species, Elena replied, carefully monitoring his vital signs. Your people fascinate me. The way your bodies integrate technology, how your emotions influence your physical healing. You're beautiful, in a scientific sense. The words hung in the air between them, and Elena blushed at her own boldness. But Thane's expression softened, and for the first time since his injury, hope flickered in his eyes. Beautiful, he repeated thoughtfully. Not a word often applied to my kind by humans. Then humans haven't been paying attention, Elena said softly. As the night wore on, something shifted between them. Elena's gentle care began to kindle more than just physical healing in Thane's damaged body. And when he caught her hand in his, thanking her with words in his native tongue that sounded like music, Elena felt her professional detachment crumbling. They were supposed to be enemies, but in that quiet medical bay, they were simply two souls reaching for each other across the darkness. Forbidden Sanctuary engineer Nora Blake had always been better with machines than people, which made her current situation particularly ironic. Crouched in the maintenance tunnels beneath Silvara's research station, she worked frantically to reroute power conduits while her unlikely partner kept watch. Scout Dex Nightfall moved through shadows like he was born to them, his lean frame perfectly adapted for reconnaissance work. Unlike the noble-born Nixari Nora had met, Dex carried himself with the quiet confidence of someone who had earned his place rather than inherited it. His skin bore the scars of countless missions, and his dark hair fell across intelligent amber. Eyes that missed nothing. "They're getting closer," he whispered, sliding down into the tunnel beside her. "The extremist patrols have swept the upper levels twice in the past hour." Nora's hands never paused in their work as she spoke. "Almost finished. This will mask our heat signatures and create false readings on their scanners. We'll be invisible, as long as we stay in the lower sections." "Clever," Dex admitted, watching her delicate fingers manipulate complex circuitry with impressive skill. "I've never seen anyone rewire a security grid so quickly." "Survival is excellent motivation," Nora replied, then looked up to find him studying her intently. Her heart skipped despite the danger. Over the past 3 days of hiding together, she had grown accustomed to his presence in ways that both comforted and terrified her. Dex had found her trying to reach the medical bay where the other humans were hiding, determined to help despite having no combat training. Instead of turning her in or sending her away, he had made a decision that went against every aspect of his training. He chose to help her. "Why?" she had asked that first night as they sheltered in an abandoned supply closet. "Why risk everything? For someone you barely know?" His answer had been simple and devastating. "Because you were brave enough to try." Now, as they prepared their makeshift sanctuary in the forgotten sublevels, that initial attraction had grown into something neither could ignore. Working side by side, they had created a bond that transcended species and circumstance. "There," Nora said, making the final connection. The tunnel around them dimmed as power rerouted, and their handheld scanners confirmed deception was working. "We're ghosts now." "Impressive work, engineer," Dex said, his voice carrying new warmth. "You've bought us time." In the dim emergency lighting, Nora became acutely aware of how close they were sitting. Dex's alien features held a strange beauty-sharp cheekbones, the subtle ridges along his temples that marked his subspecies, and those remarkable amber eyes that seemed to see straight into her soul. "Dex," she began, then stopped, uncertain how to voice what she was feeling. He reached out slowly, giving her time to pull away, and touched her cheek with fingers that trembled slightly. "I know," he said softly. "I feel it too." The kiss that followed was tentative at first, a question rather than a demand. But when Nora's arms went around his neck, pulling him closer, Dex responded with a passion that surprised them both. His lips were softer than she expected, and he tasted of the sweet Nixari fruit they had shared for dinner. When they broke apart, both were breathing hard. The logical part of Nora's mind screamed warnings about the impossibility of their situation, but her heart refused to listen. "This is madness," she whispered against his mouth. "The best kind," Dex replied, holding her close. "I've spent my life following orders, staying in the shadows, never questioning the rules. But with you, I want to step into the light." They spent the night in each other's arms, talking in whispers about their dreams, their fears, and the impossible future they dared to imagine. Dex told her about growing up as an orphan in the lower castes, earning his place through skill and determination. Nora shared her passion for engineering, her belief that technology could breach any gap dot as dawn approached through the narrow. Air vents, they both knew their sanctuary was more than just a hiding place. It was the birthplace of a love that could change everything. Storm of hearts. The storm struck Silvara with the fury of an angry god, turning the already dangerous moon into a hellscape of lightning and razor-sharp winds. In the depths of their makeshift sanctuary, 6 souls huddled together as the very ground shook beneath them. Zara pressed against the reinforced walls of their shelter, her pilot's instincts screaming warnings about structural integrity. Beside her, Keth's strong presence provided an anchor in the chaos, his hand finding hers in the darkness. "The upper levels are compromised," Dex reported, sliding down from the access tunnel with Nora close behind him. Both were soaked from spray, seeping through the ventilation system. "We're trapped down here until this passes." In the medical section they had carved out, Elena worked by emergency lighting to monitor Thane's condition. The prince had insisted on joining them despite his injuries, unwilling to be separated from the woman who had saved his life. Now he lay on a makeshift bed, his breathing labored but stable. "How long?" Zara asked, though she suspected she didn't want to know the answer. "Silvara storms can last for days," Keth replied grimly. "And with the Nexari patrols still searching ... Where?" "Stuck together," Nora finished, her eyes meeting Dex's across the cramped space. "All of us." The intimacy of their confinement created a pressure cooker of emotions that had been building for days. 3 couples, each harboring feelings that defied logic and law, found themselves unable to maintain the careful distance they had preserved. Elena was the first to crack. As she checked Thane's bandages for the dozenth time, her professional composure finally shattered. "I can't do this anymore," she whispered, tears streaming down her face. "Pretending I don't care about you, that this is just medicine." Thane's hand caught hers, pulling her down beside him. "Then don't pretend," he said softly. "Not anymore." Their kiss was desperate, full of the fear that they might not survive to explore what was growing between them. Elena's tears mixed with his as they held each other, no longer doctor and patient, but simply 2 beings who had found something precious in the darkness. Across the shelter, Zara felt her own walls crumbling as she watched their courage. "Keth," she began, turning to face the Nexari commander who had risked everything to help her. "I know what you're going to say," he interrupted, his violet eyes reflecting the emergency lights. "That this is impossible. That our peoples are enemies. That we have no future." "Actually," Zara said, stepping closer, "I was going to say that I'm falling in love with you, and I don't care about any of the rest of it." The confession hung between them for a heartbeat before Keth pulled her into his arms, kissing her with a passion that had been building since that first night in the desert. Zara melted against him, her hands exploring the strong lines of his face, marveling at how right this felt, despite how wrong it should be. Nora and Dex, watching their companions embrace their feelings, could no longer deny their own. In the alcove they had claimed, surrounded by the humming machinery that had become their shared language, they came together with a tenderness that spoke of deep connection rather than mere attraction. "Whatever happens," Dex murmured against Nora's hair, "I want you to know that these days with you have been the best of my life." "Don't talk like we're going to die," Nora replied fiercely, pulling back to look into his amber eyes. "We're going to survive this, all of us. And we're going to find a way to make this work." The storm raged outside, but within their sanctuary, a different kind of tempest was building. As the night wore on, barriers fell and hearts opened. Soft words were exchanged in multiple languages. Tender touches bridged the gaps between species, and 3 impossible love stories bloomed in defiance of a universe that said they couldn't exist. When morning finally came, filtering weakly through the storm clouds, 6 people emerged from the depths, changed forever. They had entered as refugees and enemies, but they rose as something new, the beginning of a bridge between 2 worlds, built on the strongest foundation of all, love. New dawn rising 6 months after the storm, Silvara had become something unprecedented, a symbol of hope rather than conflict. The research station had been transformed into a joint diplomatic facility, its halls buzzing with activity as humans and Nexari worked side by side. Captain Zara Mitchell stood on the observation deck, watching the sunrise paint the crystalline landscape in shades of gold and rose. Her uniform now bore both human and Nexari insignia, marking her new role as liaison officer. Behind her, strong arms encircled her waist as Keth joined her at the window. "The transport arrives in an hour," he murmured against her ear, his breath warm on her skin. "Are you ready for this?" Zara leaned back against his chest, drawing strength from his presence. Today marked the official signing of the Silvara Accords, the first lasting peace treaty between their species. More importantly, it would also see the formal recognition of cross-species partnerships, making their love legal under both governments' laws. "As ready as I'll ever be," she replied, turning in his arms to face him. The months had been challenging, filled with political battles and cultural misunderstandings, but they had emerged stronger. "Though I still can't believe your parents are actually coming." Keth's expression softened. His family's acceptance had been the hardest won victory of all, but even the most traditional Nexari nobility had been moved by the couple's obvious devotion. "My mother is quite taken with the idea of human grandchildren," he said with a smile that made Zara's heart flutter. Down in the medical bay, Dr. Elena Voss made final preparations for the day's ceremonies. Her work on Silvara had revolutionized interspecies medicine, earning her accolades from both human and Nexari medical institutions. But her greatest achievement stood beside her, fully healed and more beautiful than ever. Prince Thane Shadowmere had defied every prediction, not just surviving his injuries, but emerging stronger than before. The biogel techniques Elena had pioneered were now standard treatment, saving countless lives. More importantly, their love story had captured the imagination of both species, proving that healing extended far beyond medicine. "The delegation from New Geneva wants to interview you again," Thane said, reviewing the day's schedule with the efficiency that made him such an effective diplomat. His noble bearing now served a greater purpose than ceremony. He had become one of the most persuasive advocates for peace. Helena laughed, checking her reflection in the medical bay's mirror. "At least this time I won't be covered in surgical gel and blood." "I thought you looked beautiful then, too," Thane said softly, pulling her close for a kiss that still made her knees weak after all these months. In the engineering section, Nora. Blake put the finishing touches on her latest creation, a new type of communication relay that allowed real-time translation between human and Nexari languages. The technology was already being installed on ships and stations throughout both territories, breaking down one of the most fundamental barriers between their peoples. Dex. Nightfall emerged from the access tunnel where he had been running final security checks. His role had evolved from scout to security chief, designing protection protocols that satisfied both species' paranoia about the other. More importantly, he had found a purpose beyond following orders. He was helping to build something lasting. "The perimeter is secure," he reported, then grinned at the sight of Nora, surrounded by holographic displays and circuit boards. "Should I be worried that you're talking to the computers again?" "They're better conversationalists than most people," Nora replied without looking up, then squeaked in surprise as Dex lifted her off her feet and spun her around. "Dex, I'm working." "The work will wait," he said, setting her down but keeping his arms around her. "Today is about celebrating what we've built together." As the morning progressed, delegations arrived from across human and Nexari space. The ceremony was held in the main assembly hall, its transparent dome providing a view of both Silvara's surface and the stars beyond. Representatives from dozens of worlds watched as the three couples stood together, their love stories having become the foundation for lasting peace. The signing itself was formal, full of speeches and protocols, but the real magic happened afterward. As the official ceremonies ended and the celebration began, Humans and Nexari mingled freely for the first time in generations. Children from both species played together, their laughter echoing through halls that had once known only tension and fear. Zara found herself on the dance floor with Keth, moving to music that blended human and Nexari traditions. Around them, Elena and Thane swayed together, while Nora taught Dex the intricacies of human partner dancing, both of them laughing at his attempts. "Do you ever wonder what would have happened if my ship hadn't crashed?" Zara asked as they moved. Together, perfectly in sync despite their different backgrounds. Keth considered the question seriously. "I think we would have found each other eventually," he said finally. "Some connections transcend circumstance. They're written in the stars themselves." As the celebration continued into the night, the three couples stood together on the observation deck, looking out at the cosmos that had once seemed to divide them. Now those same stars appeared to be shining approval on what they had accomplished. Elena leaned against Thane's shoulder, her engagement ring a hybrid of human and Nexari design, catching the starlight. Nora and Dex stood hand in hand, all ready, planning their next impossible engineering project. Zara and Keth held each other close, their love having become the bridge between two civilizations. "To new beginnings," Zara toasted, raising her glass as the binary sunrise began to paint the sky in brilliant colors. "To love conquering all," Elena added with a smile. "To the courage to reach across the darkness," Nora finished, her voice filled with wonder at how far they had all come. Above them, the stars shone down on Silvara, no longer a contested border, world but a beacon of hope. And in the growing light of dawn, 6 hearts beat as one, proving that love truly could bridge any gap, no matter how vast the space between worlds. The end.